The battle for the Republican nomination for 2024 is starting to take a little bit more shape, with a big focus in recent days on the state of Iowa, which leads off the GOP's presidential nominating calendar. Today, former President Donald Trump is heading to Davenport, Iowa, where he will roll out his new education policy. He has been on the attack against Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who gave two speeches in Iowa on Friday, concentrating on the culture wars for his first ever visit to the first caucus state. This is the clearest signal to date, at least, that he will potentially launch a presidential campaign later this year. Hasn't made the official announcement yet. Kevin Madden is with us this morning. He's a political analyst and former senior advisor to Mitt Romney's presidential campaigns. Good to see you, as always. We'll get to DeSantis and Trump here in a moment because there's a lot to chew on. But first, I want to talk about former Vice President Pence's comments over the weekend, speaking to a group of journalists, and some pretty divisive remarks when it comes to his former boss, saying President Trump was wrong in regards to January 6th. I had no right to overturn the election, and his reckless words endangered my family and everyone at the Capitol that day, and I know history will hold Donald Trump accountable. He has said similar comments. This maybe is the most stark comment that we've heard him say about January 6th and his former boss. Why now, though?
Well, it seems as if the more Donald Trump gets deeper and deeper in with some of these criminal investigations. You have one that's happening in Manhattan with the Manhattan DA. You have another state one. You have a couple of federal ones, and you also have an inquiry into some of the president's remarks around the election down in Georgia. The more that scrutiny comes, the more Mike Pence feels the need to sort of break from the identity that he had as a Trump acolyte, as Trump's vice president. And the more that he looks at his own 2024 ambitions, the more he wants to draw a contrast and the more distance he wants to put himself between himself and Donald Trump. So I think the closer you get to an official announcement for Mike Pence and a possible 2024 run, the more you're going to see statements like this.
And we're also seeing louder cries that if Trump were indicted, that he should step aside and not run in 2024. Former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson saying as much. He also could potentially run. If an indictment were to come, do you think Trump should step aside?
Well, I think Trump should step aside, yeah, but I don't think he will. I think those are two different questions. Trump very much wants to run for president again, has already announced. And if anything, I think he's going to use any resistance he gets from any of these or any scrutiny he gets from any of these inquiries to really go hard against all of his opponents and to use those inquiries as a backdrop of what he believes is unfair criticism of him, that he's going to hold all of these folks up as trying to hold him back from his rightful claim as head of the Republican Party and as potentially the next 2024 nominee. So the question on whether he will step down, I think it's sort of an irrelevant one, because I don't think that he'll ever step aside even if there is a criminal indictment.
And you talk about his biggest opponents, Ron DeSantis, likely his biggest opponent in 2024 in trying to get the nomination. I want to play for folks at home some of the Florida governor's comments over the weekend as he spoke to people in Iowa.
In Florida, we have a saying that we will fight the woke in the legislative halls. We will fight the woke in the corporations. We will fight the woke in the schools. We will never ever surrender to the woke mob, because our state is where woke goes to die.
Where woke goes to die, a very conservative, hard right brand. Can Ron DeSantis gain the attention and the votes of people in the middle, the moderates, with comments like that?
You know, it's a very difficult dance. It's hard to underestimate, Marni, just how real the sentiment is against the perceived excesses of the left and, quote, wokeism amongst those most vocal, active, base Republican voter right now. So DeSantis and many other Republicans know this. And so when they're looking at the context of a primary where the most active, vocal, base activists show up, they're speaking directly to those voters. And they're trying to get ahead in that sub-primary of who can be the strongest against the left. And so while that has some currency inside a Republican primary, when you get to a general election, that message plays a lot differently in the areas that are most important to winning a general election, which are suburban areas around the biggest metropolitan areas in the battleground states that really matter for the Electoral College. So it's a very difficult dance. I think what Ron DeSantis and others think is that they have time, that they can focus on this part of the Republican electorate now inside of a Republican primary, and that they will sort of be able to pivot and recalibrate their message where they to get into a general election.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.